Ladies and gentlemen, it is Swayze week here at Triple Feature. We are very excited. We have watched three Swayze films, Swayze cinema pieces. I'm not sure what they called them back in the day before he passed on to the other side. Um, we watch Roadhouse, which we'll be talking about today. And then on Wednesday, we will be talking about another Swayze movie we watched called Point Break. And then on Friday, another Swayze movie we got to watch called Red Dawn. But today is Roadhouse Day. And I just want to say something about Roadhouse real quickly that I noticed this entire movie. Everybody in this movie, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation,
Yeah.
um, I don't know if genders existed then or not.
No.
I don't think so. But everybody in this movie is attracted to Swayze.
Yeah.
They make it clear everybody is Swayze curious.
Even the blind guy.
Even the blind guy, which is always weird if you have a white blind musician. It just felt weird to me. I was like, I feel like if he's going to be wise and blind, he's got to be black.
Tough time never lasts. Only tough people last.
There's definitely appropriation going on there, but that was the different time.
I was offended.
Yeah.
I think. No, and why do they cover him with chicken wire? Because he's blind?
I mean the way they treated the disabled back then was pretty crazy. But I think it's a good snapshot of history.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good snapshot of history.
This is your first time watching it, correct?
Yes, this was my first time. I've heard of Roadhouse.
This is your first time watching?
Yeah.
Of course. Who hasn't heard of Roadhouse?
This was a mythical movie that had been talked about for a long time, and I always saw the cover. I saw Swayze in a pair of jeans that had been sprayed on, and standing in front of a building, and I thought, okay, especially when I was young and still discovering myself, I thought, I'm not ready for this. I don't know what this will awaken in me.
This better not awaken anything in me.
So I stayed away from it. I think just like
and it was probably smart at the time. I will say this too, is I watched it for the first time a couple of years ago, actually, and growing up, as most people probably know, or I assume this isn't a unique opinion, that most of the time you go back and you watch these classic movies, especially like 80s and these things that are very stylized, and they're usually, most of the time you watch it and you're like, yeah, they're okay, or they're kind of boring, but they were good for the time. And I just want to say, for me, this movie delivered on pretty much every level. Like, I was loving the entire movie. I thought I've watched a lot of these, or not, I shouldn't say of these types of movies, but I've watched a lot of older movies that are supposed to be good, and I usually walk away, I'm happy I watched it, but it didn't do anything special. But this movie, to me, hit every button that it needed to hit,
and some buttons, probably buttons it shouldn't have hit.
No, I mean, but I was not expected for the ride that I was taken on.
Yeah, for this. No, I think this definitely took me on a ride. I think it took me on a ride that I think could have possibly helped or destroyed my marriage. I'm not sure. It definitely brought me to things I had never seen before. Now, it started right out, because I want to say this about this movie. When this movie starts right out, it kicks right into high gear with John Locke's dad showing up to this bar.
Yeah.
He busts right in. He means business. He's got a freaking bolo tie on. And I'm like, okay, this guy, he's good. He walks in, he's looking at everything, and immediately we see this man, of course, it's the 80s, in a bar, just openly assault a woman. He just kicks a seat right out from under her.
Yeah, no one seems to care too much. Yeah.
He just does this. And in comes someone's mom who comes walking over. Turns out this isn't someone's mom. This is Swayze. That blew my mind immediately. I saw the hair, I saw the clothes. I just figured it was someone's mom who had raised them and then had left later to be with like her lesbian girlfriend. Turns out it is Swayze, and he's the best.
Oh yeah. Well, and I will say that over these three movies, my attraction to Swayze, there was three varying levels of enticement. I felt like, I mean, not that his look changed that greatly, but his age is different, and I don't want to get too much in the other movies, but I will say that I think the Roadhouse Swayze was my favorite of all the Swayzes.
I would say yes. I think in the most enticing of the Swayze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely the best in all three, but
Mhm.
this is definitely the most enticing of the Swayzes. So John Locke's dad walks in and he goes into Swayze and they take him in the back. Now, Swayze had just been stabbed by this guy who wanted a piece of Swayze.
Yeah.
And I want a piece of you now. He pulls a knife and no joke, stabs him like he goes, eh! It's the worst stabbing
Yeah.
in the history of stabbings. And so then Swayze's, and so I think as you talked about here, this guy goes, I want a PC right now. And Swayze's like, let's do it, but outside.
Yeah.
And it subverts expectations immediately,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. This movie, I when I was watching it, I thought, I'm ready to make fun of it and joke about it, but the way it opened with the subversion of expectations of him going outside and then him just shutting the door, and it's a perfect character setup. This isn't. I mean, there's plenty of stuff about this movie that's funny that we'll go through, and it is funny, um, but it's not a poorly made film.
No,
These people knew what they were doing, and they did it very well. You know exactly who Swayze is from that opening scene, and that's a big thing I judge movies on too. Is do you know who you're dealing with, or is the story set up properly from the first scene? And this movie, like you said, starts right out by showing him as the best. He doesn't want to fight, and his reputation precedes him so much he's known somehow across the nation as a really good bar bouncer.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to say with this movie. This movie's plot is about a bouncer who's so good that he's immediately recognizable just by people on the street as the best bar bouncer. And this is before the internet. This isn't like he was on, he's become a meme or something. It's just that he's so popular. I'm assuming magazine, like bar mag. I don't know how people recognize him just by
Bouncer
looks.
Monthly, I think. Do they make Bouncer magazines?
I think, I mean, this universe, I think they do. And it's almost like we're getting into a John Wick universe.
Yeah.
Of like, is there an underground, there's like this underground
everyone's
connections of bar workers,
yeah,
of like singers and managers and bouncers and just alcoholics that for some reason know each other. And there's this whole like seedy underground that like somehow Swayze's become their like reluctant king. It's like really good.
And I was trying to make sense of that quick. Well, because he goes in, and this is what gives a beautiful sense also of his character. With a script that I thought, is this Aaron Sorkin? Who wrote this? Immediately I was like, who wrote this?
Yeah.
Beautiful. But John Locke's dad comes in again, probably just stole another kidney, but he wants his stuff saved, and he lets Swayze know immediately that, I need the best. And Swayze's like, I'm not the best.
No.
The guy that trained him is the best, but he wants Swayze. And then after you see what Swayze does, he's got this cut on his arm. He lives in this world. He says, I got you a plane ticket. Here you go. And Swayze says, don't need it. Don't fly. It's too dangerous. Let us know immediately what we're dealing with again. It just keeps letting us know it's like the genius of this writing. Now, he goes, of course, and I want to mention that, of course, you're like, what are you doing? He gives his car away to some random dude on the street, gets in his nice BMW, and takes off to this new bar. Now, this new bar that he takes over is a little reckless. This bar,
little.
In one night, everyone breaks every table.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how weak these tables are, because these tables are breaking everywhere. They're built for WWE stuff. But everybody's just fighting. Everyone's attacking everybody. The bouncers are just punching everybody. There's chicken wire in front of, again, our blind white guitar player, who, of course, knows Swayze. He knows Swayze, of course.
Now, is that a thing? In all seriousness, is this a thing where they actually, in bars, where they put up wire to protect the musicians?
I've only seen it in like 80s movies. But
is this a common thing in any of these movies? Because I've never seen it ever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure this was a similar thing they did in Howard the Duck. And Howard the Duck, they had the band.
Okay, I was assuming there was some Howard the Duck connection here.
Band, but the girl, it was that sort of thing going on, because you got to stop them from stuff being thrown at them the whole time. Now, I want to mention here that, Swayze moves to this new town, and he immediately takes up on this. There's this farmer Farmer has no wife. He has this huge amount of land, and he offers him this place, and Swayze immediately takes it. And I love this because we're dealing with a movie about a bouncer, and he's the best, and he's fighting, in a sense, he's fighting evil, and he's got these rules. But immediately, the writer, for some reason, the writer of the script was like, "That's what I'm doing, but I also want to take a quick shot at religion." And for some reason, the farmer is talking about needing money, and he's like, "Well, I got to give it to the Presbyterian Church, but you know how that is." And then him and Swayze basically start mentioning how, well, that's how it's always been with organized religion. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why are we getting, like, the writer takes a step back and he's like, this is what we need to do. I need to make sure my voice is heard.
Well, it's not just, but Swayze at this point is such a the writer, they created a living creature, a living organism. Swayze, I think, kind of transcended the film itself. So, I mean, you learn, like, what was it? What did he become? A
philosopher.
He was a philosopher. This guy went and got obviously stepped away from organized religion, became a philosopher, probably because there's no work in philosophy, like most people. He ended up being a bouncer, but now he roams the land.
But he uses that philosophy to.
Well, that's what I mean. He uses, and that's why he's the best. Right. I mean, because he's become the wizened old what's the Ninja Turtles? What's the rat?
Oh,
rat. Not Shredder, right?
Not Shredder. That's Master Shredder. That's right there. You just stepped over a line. No, we're talking about
Slicer.
What?
Cutter.
Slicer Cutter. Why did the name go?
Something like that, right?
I watched that entire show growing up as a kid. He makes a funny.
I didn't watch it.
He laughs,
but everyone knows what I'm talking about. The point is that he's become this like wise old guy, or he's not that old, but his wisdom has transcended his physical abilities. But what's weird is that it seemed to have happened before that, but for some reason he's just can't be employed anywhere else. Yeah. And this is what's interesting is that I'm like, is it just that he can't get employed? I mean, he's like because he's the worst pacifist of all time, but he can do other things. It's just like he's addicted to that. Like he can't forgive himself for the past. He can't move on. He knows he has the secret move to rip out people's throats. He can't, so he can't like go back to the normal life. He's Frodo after returning the ring. He can't go back to Hobbiton.
Absolutely, yeah. This is probably I think that's a good point because I think this is probably what Frodo did after he got on the ship, right? He took the ship, he went across into the Undying Lands.
He probably became the bouncer on that.
Became a bouncer. Yeah. And then everybody looked at him and everybody kept saying, "Hey, I thought you'd be bigger." Right? Always the line.
Bigger.
I do like after we take, so Swayze takes this new place. He's working. He's trying to fix it up. He takes control of this place. He's up in his room sleeping. And we find out, of course, that Swayze sleeps naked. That's a given. I mean, his sweat probably makes the sheets cleaner, I would guess. Yeah. And this woman comes up to give him breakfast, and he stands up, and we see Swayze's backside and her face. She goes, like she doesn't have flip shades, but she needed flip shades to let us know. It's like she brought him breakfast, but he was showing her breakfast. It was really weird.
Who's thirstier at that point?
Yeah. So she sees that, and then he's working out. He's got like these sweats that I didn't know you could have sweats so tight, and he's just got sweats on, and he's out doing like his Tai Chi, and he's just glistening in the sun. Absolutely. And the farmer is just watching him, and the farmer does not have a way. And I think the farmer is 100% straight, dead serious, but he's definitely Swayze curious, because at the end he's watching and then he goes, oh, and he rubs his head. He starts having the Swayze meat sweats, and it's insane. I was like, what? At that point I was like, what is this movie? Because I feel like this is secret propaganda. At some point, I feel like there were like maybe 3 gay people in the world to this movie, and that's when we reached like way. It brought a whole new level of what was happening here, and then we add the fact that we already have this religion shot, and then we run into the main bad guy, who's this rich guy. And he's got a main henchman, which we know is going to have a showdown. And he's got a cross for an earring. So I'm guessing he's a Christian. I was like, again, another shot at Christianity. Farmer's not against it. Swayze's philosopher. He's done with it.
So says the fighting philosopher.
And the only guy who's truly a Christian here is the henchman of the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't really know what's going on.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Moving forward in the plot, so he moves to this town to take care of this bar and fix it up, and of course this rich guy owns the town and has the cops in his pocket, so much so that you can drive a monster truck through a building and seemingly no consequences.
There was no,
I don't know, like the cops are like, do the cops come and take care of this? But it just seems like no, because the guy's just handing the cops $100 bills, I guess, and just saying like, don't worry about it. The level of villainy at this point is like insane. But I mean, I guess it makes sense why Swayze's staying.
Well, Swayze has to. I mean, if he leaves? What happens to this town?
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, this town is bought and sold at this point. There's like no.
I think you would agree with this. I think we've all seen car dealerships where a villain has had his henchmen drive a monster truck through them, but most of the time the cops end up showing up.
Well, yeah, and you usually want to use one of your disposable men because they can take the heat and the fall, and you can move on. This was just like, I mean, the rich guy could have done it himself.
Besides the main henchman, though, every one of this guy's other henchmen were completely disposable. There was the fat guy with the suspenders who was worthless. There was like someone's dad, and then there was like, and they're all and they all. Why does everybody in this movie pull out giant knives? Everybody's pulling out knives every time a fight starts. Everybody's pulling out Crocodile Dundee-sized knives, and every time that anybody gets in any kind of trouble, like everybody's got it. I'm like, what is happening? Is everyone bad in this town? Because that bar, there's only probably 1,000 people in that whole town. That bar is just packed with drunks. Not just drunks though, like drunks trying to assault everyone.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I think clearly what we're supposed to take from this is an underground world that exists, separated, not physically, but separated from the rest of the world here. And it seems like this town has been completely corrupted, kind of sunk down into its hell. And that's again, this feels like a John Wick world where it's almost like the assassins have taken over this town completely. Yeah. So they have free reign here, and Swayze's here to clean it up. Well, okay. And he does, and he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's gonna clean it. That's not. He's the janitor of the town in that way. He's coming in, he's cleaning up, and he meets this new girl. He meets this blonde, right? So of course that complicates things because he's a man on the move. He can't be held down.
And she's blonde.
She's blonde. She's like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I gotta keep moving. But what's he supposed to do now? This, throws a wrench in it. And in the town comes the man who taught him everything, which is Sam Elliott, which isn't a cowboy in this, but he shows up. He's immediately macking on Swayze's woman. He's dancing with her. He's doing everything. He's macking on her real hard. And then there's a key moment here before we really find out what Sam Elliott is, because I thought he fights. We see him fight a bit, and we go, I'm not sure how he's fighting so well since he walks with a limp and can barely move. But he, for some reason, decides to show something in his pants, and he kind of pulls his pants down just enough that we know that Sam Elliott is going commando. And I'm not sure why this was necessary. Because one year he's not Swayze. Let's just be honest about this. No. He's not Swayze.
No, he used to be the best though.
He used to be the best, but is it because when he's wearing those jeans, he needs to be able to move? Like you have to have that kind of ability to move. You can't have boxers or briefs or even like maybe a thong.
Well, I was gonna say it may have been a friction issue, but I feel like the friction issue would become worse. But I guess, here's the thing is, I think there's a reason Sam Elliott's the best and you aren't.
Okay, you know what? You just blew my mind with that.
Yeah.
So he's not wearing anything. It could be a friction issue. Maybe he likes the fire it starts as he's fighting. Maybe it helps him move around. I don't know. But I do like this, that Sam Elliott comes in, he's macking on Swayze's woman, he's giving him life advice and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, you just need to leave town, bro. Like, you just got to go. Like, you can't do this. But Swayze's just like, no, I'm not leaving, right? I didn't get a philosophy degree for nothing. And Probably in serious debt still then.
I was gonna say he's in crippling debt, and I think that's part of his mental attitude where he's at
Yeah.
right now. Yeah,
And they never say it, but I feel like it's inferred.
and you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it over the entire film.
Yeah, I really and that's the thing is this movie, and I think this is a little known thing is this movie is really an attack on organized religion and the nationwide student debt.
I think that's
And
yeah.
Yeah, and I think you package it up as an action movie and people forget about it. But I think this really is a big. I think this movie's coming back into popularity to try to push Biden to eliminate the student debt.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
Yeah, and I hope Biden takes the time. I would assume, knowing Biden and the way he is, I would assume he's seen this movie 10, 15 times already.
Yeah.
But seeing it fresh, especially maybe if he could see it in 4K, be able to really see it,
Yeah, see the creases and see the folds and all that stuff.
Mainly the folds. I think that's the main thing. It's the folds.
I think that the I mean now I run down the I wasn't able to watch it this last week, so run down the kind of the ending when he has the moral conundrum of is he gonna rip out the guy's throat or is he gonna now
so there's this mythological story going around the whole time that Swayze had ripped a man's throat out, and everyone's like, this is ridiculous. He's never ripped a man's throat out.
And a ripped throat.
I seriously doubt it.
Oh, you do? Well, then I guess you'll see.
Will I?
Yeah, you will. And so will they.
But he ends up in this big fight one night, and he's being chased. This guy basically blows a bunch of stuff up. It's a henchman with the the Christian earrings. So it's Christianity versus New Age philosophy.
Yeah.
And he's driving away as Christianity does. It hits and runs. And Swayze runs. He gets at an angle because Swayze's not only a philosopher, but he also knows things about probably hypotenuses and a lot of things about theorems. And he can
that's philosophy. Yeah.
And he runs and he catches him at an angle and he starts to fight this guy. And this is the classic scene where he's fighting this guy by this lake, and this guy grabs him by the throat in this big fight because this is finally Swayze's said he's never had anybody best him one-on-one. It's never happened. But this guy is actually getting the better of him, and he grabs him around the throat, and then he says the classic line, and I will edit it for the children watching, but he says, I used to make love to men like you in prison.
Yeah. And what a good, I mean, when we talk about good filmmaking, I feel like when they filmed that scene, they knew they had gold. I just can't think of a better line or something. I mean, it's almost like you want to start cheering. And I feel like if you were in the theater, it was just, I mean, I guess not cheering because this is the bad guy, but you have a visceral reaction with there would have been a gasp. It would have brought something out in the masses. It was so good.
There was definitely gasp. I'm sure I gasped, and and you could feel the gasp of the past of people. I'm sure had seen it. And imagine the first viewing of that. No one's ever said it. But when this line hit, I mean, Marlon.
Yeah, when this guy finally comes out to Swayze, and we're assuming either the first time in his life or he comes out to every person he kills.
Yeah.
And how difficult that would be as a henchman of hiding that your whole life. Again, the Christianity thing. And relieving that stress, and then at that point you're conflicted because you think this is a man who's been marginalized his whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you start to feel bad for him because it's like he can't come out to anybody.
No, he has to kill the people after he comes out. He has no choice.
Yeah. So now you're in more of a conflict because obviously Swayze doesn't murder, or he has once, but he doesn't want to do it again. He knows his girl doesn't want him to. She's watching, but now on top of that, he knows he's potentially killing a minority.
Well, and I felt like what this represented really, because Swayze does kill him. I don't want to act like Swayze doesn't kill this man.
He does. He has to.
Is it a hate crime? Possibly. Potentially, definitely. But he does it in a way that I think the writer was intentional, that he rips his throat out, thus taking his voice for himself. Yeah. Right? He pulls a Little Mermaid here. He steals the voice, but I think he takes his voice because he realized, look, this guy has been hiding for so long and he can only tell people in private. I will take his voice upon myself. I will. Now I have no choice. I must violently murder this man. Of course, this man is
and in a very specific, violent, difficult to pull off way.
No, and what does he pull out? He pulls out the bottom of his throat, and you know he gets his Adam's apple. That's not a question. And what does that represent? The Garden of Eden. It represents the beginning. It represents men and women. It represents this idea that everybody makes these jokes about Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And it's him pulling out and saying, I've got the apple. We're starting fresh. It's not a sin.
Not only is it not a sin, but now he can be that voice for him. He has that voice. He can be the voice for the marginalized. That he destroys Christianity in the process, and the jewelry obviously represents the capitalistic side of the student debt, of him relieving that student debt. And I think that with all these layers in the movie, I think a lot of it gets missed because you can see the outline of Swayze's dong the whole time. Right? I mean, I feel like that nobody's really taken this movie apart because you can see the glands, the tip, you know?
I take what you say very seriously.
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze is
Dalton, I thought you'd be bigger.
Opinions vary.